Hi, everyone. My name is Jason. I am a research scientist at Mozilla. My work focuses on bringing more transparency to artificial intelligence algorithms, or more specifically, I build tools. I build tools to help users verify and interrogate AI algorithms. And so for the next few minutes, I'll walk through these 5 topics with you. I'll explain what I mean by verify and interrogate AI algorithms. I'll use language translation as an example. And I'll go into what happens when AI makes a billion translation mistakes. I'll then look at what happens when how AI impacts us both physically on the road and also virtually on the web. And I'll conclude with some of the work that we're doing here at Mozilla around transparency. So we all have very different ideas of what AI could mean to us. It could be, for example, my refrigerator started talking to me, or it could be the killer robots that you see in the movies. And so to help ground the conversation, I am going to look at language translation. So these days, if you point your phone at a menu like this, you can actually translate the menu from a foreign language into English. So I hope all of us agree here in the room, this is one type of AI or artificial intelligence. And I was also just traveling in Asia last week and saw one of these signs. I was standing next to a cliff, and the sign told me to fall into water carefully. So in the back of my mind, it's like, does the sign really mean for me to jump off the cliff and fall into water carefully, or is it trying to say something else? So as we're using these tools, AI, to help us translate languages for us, the question is, how do we trust the result of the translation? How many of you here have used Google Translate? Okay, so I think most of you are here familiar with the technology. And so if I were to translate the phrase full of beans from English to, say, German, which one of these 2 translations would you trust? Am I saying, a can full of beans? Or am I talking about a child who just woke up from a nap, who's full of beans and running around the house? Like, how do you trust the result of Google Translate? So 10 years ago, I actually interned at Google. As part of my project, I built this tool on the bottom right-hand side. And so rather than just showing users two blocks at the top, users now have some additional tools to help them understand what Google Translate is doing. And what do I mean by verify an AI algorithm? So as part of this tool, let me see, how do I do this? Yeah, we provide information such as part of speech. A can full of beans is a noun, a child full of beans is an adjective. So users can use this information to assess whether or not the translation is correct. We also translate the word from from German back into English into a language that the users understand. So the users can look at the reverse translation and see whether or not Google Translate is doing the right thing. What do I mean by interrogate? So even though Google Translate only gives you one translation, the tool is also interactive, and we provide different synonyms. So the users can click on different potential translations and explore for themselves which one they might actually want to use. And instead of just accepting the first result that Google Translate gives back to the users. So my first takeaway from my talk today, or first 2, are when we deal with AI algorithms, 1, we should verify the results with human expertise, and hopefully using a language that we humans can understand. And 2 is that we should interrogate and analyze all possible outcomes that the AI can generate, and not just accept the first thing that the AI feeds to us. And so my next topic is, so what happens when AI makes mistakes? So Google Translate, I think, is about 4 years ago, was used by about 500 million users and translates about 200 billion words per day. But even though it's super convenient, if you have an important document, like a legal document, if you're doing marketing material, you probably don't want to just feed the document through Google Translate and put it out there. We still hire human professional translators. And as I was doing all the research on machine translation, we noticed there's a new business model called PostEdit. So historically, professional human translators are paid for the number of words translated. And the new business model that we noticed is that the translation companies will start giving translators documents translated by Google first, and then ask the translator to correct the document. And the translator are then paid by the number of words corrected. Does anybody want to take a guess what happened? What's that? Yeah, they make a lot of changes. And or to more concretely, we actually put a poll on Twitter, and this is what the translators told us. Translators want to know what do you think of post-editing, and more of them would rather go to a dentist than try to correct Google Translation. Or to put this in terms of numbers, when researchers trying to study the practice, they found that to pay the researchers fair rate, you actually have to pay them more than the original rate, about up to 110% before the translators will bid for a job to post-edit because of all the manual efforts involved. They actually, in a controlled environment, when they use professional translating tools, they spend up to 90% of the time correcting Google Translation, then starting the translation from scratch. Because the effort required to comprehend the document is still the same, but they are now only paid about 40% of what they earned before. So my next takeaway from how we trust AI algorithms is that AI is really only a tool. So whenever we're evaluating AI, we need to take into account what AI is being used for and who's benefiting from the algorithm. So I'm sort of lightning talks. I'm going through a lot of topics very quickly. So the third topic, what happens when AI helps arrange for 1 billion miles of travels? How many of you here use Lyft, Uber, or another car sharing app? So I see about at least over half of the hands go up. So hopefully this is another example most of you can relate, or many of you can relate in this room. So back in 2008, when Uber tried to seek funding and start a company, this is actually from their own presentation. They described that they will use algorithms to help have better utilized vehicle resources. Or in other words, as part of their business model, they're going to reduce traffic jams in cities. And what happens 11 years later is when Lyft and Google commissioned a study in 6 cities in the United States, they actually found the opposite effect, that they were actually increasing traffic congestion. In fact, the head of global policy at Uber came out to actually admit that publicly to the Washington Post. They're likely contributing to traffic congestions. So while this may not be good news for Uber or Lyft, at least we are able to have the data to verify what's happening to AI at a large scale. So they made a claim, this is what AI could do, and we have the data to back it up. And so my next takeaway is, if you want to evaluate what happens systematically, we need the data. And in this case, at least Uber and Lyft share the data with the independent group. And so my next topic is what happens when we have AI on the internet. How many of you have opened up either Facebook or Instagram sometime today? I also see about half of the hands go up in the room. So hopefully this is another example you can relate to. So this is the job ad that I saw on Facebook yesterday. I was preparing for the slides. And whenever you see an ad on Facebook, you can actually click on the bottom on the little, the 3 dots on the top right-hand corner and ask Facebook to give you an explanation why I'm seeing this particular ad. And it will give you an explanation like this to say, these are the reasons why I'm seeing this ad. But researchers have also found that there's a lot of reasons that Facebook is not providing us. And some of these reasons include the budget of the ad, your gender, your race, and automatic ad analysis. Does anybody want to venture a guess why the budget of the ad might affect whether I'm seeing this ad and not, Connie sitting in the back of the room? So yeah, okay, so I have 2 minutes, so I'm just going to answer this myself. So as it turns out, there are more products aimed at women on Facebook than men, and therefore it's actually more expensive to advertise to women than men. And if you're a company trying to advertise for a job opening, and if your budget is below the kind of products that are being aimed at women, Facebook will naturally serve these low-value ads to men and show the higher-value ads to women. And that's why it's one of the possible reasons why I'm seeing the job ad and not the other women here in this room. Or more specifically, some of the more recent research found some of these findings. They found that, for example, when they post jobs about the lumber industry, Facebook overwhelmingly served the ads to white men. When they advertise for jobs, positions, for example, cashiers in the supermarket, 85 of them went to women. And when they advertise for jobs for taxi drivers, they went to Black Americans. And all of this is researchers posting a job ad with exactly the same targeting criteria, and the delivery is determined by the algorithm. And the problem with this is that because we don't have the data, even though we can demonstrate some of these effects, we don't know how widespread these effects are and how many people they affect. are impacted by such practices. And which brings me to the last point, some of the recent work that we're doing with the US and EU elections and Mozilla. So for the past year or so, I've been trying to build tools to help our users and just web users in general better understand how they're being targeted during the US midterm elections and the EU elections earlier this year. Some of these tools include the ad analysis for Facebook and the ad transparency report for the European Union. But for both of these projects, we could not deliver the entire product because we do not have the data. And which is why I'm here at MisinfoCon, and hopefully we'll engage with some of the representative of platforms to basically talk to, to have a constructive conversation on how we can get some of the data. We definitely have the expertise to build these tools to bring more transparency to AI, but we don't have the data. And so thank you very much, and thanks.